Good morning, Jane here. Today what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about stamps and we're going to make an intaglio stamp. Last night on a wooden form, I made a little dish. I just wanted to show you. And I took a relief stamp, this little froggy I made here, pressed it into the clay. In addition, I took an intaglio stamp and pressed it more lightly into the sides. Now, the froggy is a little bit deep, okay? And the nice thing about him is later on I'm going to put some small glass pieces in there and fire it. So he's going to kind of be like the greenish red purple kind of jewel. So stamps can be used for a lot of different things. You can use them lightly for imprints, a little bit deeper as an area to do accents like with wood. Now, a couple different types of stamps. There's a relief stamp, which means your design is raised, okay? And you have it raised and attached on a base. If it's at least 1/3 of an inch and you don't over push it, you won't see the side or the shape of the base. So this is really an important thing right there, but you need something to hold on to. Some people like little handles on the back, some don't. Another type of a stamp is a roulette. A roulette is the French word for wheel, and what it does is it enables you to make a continuous design that you can roll over a large piece of roll into a large piece of clay. Here you can see one printing out a little bit nicer, a little bit darker. It's a screwdriver. So I did a couple screwdrivers and then I could push those into. Now, this is an intaglio design. Intaglio means it's carved below the surface. So what you're doing is you're making a design and you're scratching into that design below. Whatever, you got the clay surface, whatever is below the surface when it's pressed into clay will rise. And when you have something that is above the clay, the relief pressed into the clay goes down below. So it does exactly the opposite. So we've got roulette. Now this could be relief on here. Okay, it could be pieces added onto, slipped and attached. So relief can be intaglio or relief, the roulette. And then you have the relief stamp. And then you also have the intaglio stamp. And intaglio stamps can be very simplistic. They can also be very, very complicated. Sometimes I will actually do like drawings on them. It's a coffee cup there, a little self-portrait there. So whatever you would like to do, the one thing you need to be aware of is that it will print the opposite direction. So relief or intaglio doesn't make a difference. You press it into there. If you're looking at it and it's leaning to the left, okay, we press it down, it will be leaning in the opposite direction. That's most important when you're considering doing like words, okay, or you're doing something that has an orientation. I'm going to show you just a couple more because this says MRS on it, okay. So I take it, I press it into the clay, and I kind of rock it back and forth. Now, with the intaglio, the shape, the outside shape and edge will show. Okay, so hopefully this won't stick too bad there. And then you can see in my own handwriting. Okay, you can also, you can make anything here. I've got like birds on a little telephone wire. If you're wondering why some of the clay is different colors, it's a different type of clay. This being red earthenware. This is another type of earthenware. And I think I may have a couple stamps that are into porcelain. So I'm going to press this one down, my little birdies on the wire here. Again, this is a little more subtle, but you can see the sweet little birdies on the wire. Now notice the shape that it was carved into, scratched into, does show. So you want to make sure it's smooth and it's a shape that works well with what you want to transfer it into. Now, you don't have to fire the stamps to use them once or twice if you don't have access to a kiln. It does help for the long term if you think you want to use them multiple times. Last night I made a very simple stamp. Now, you can make them any size you want to. These are very small. And what I did is I double-ended it. Okay, so basically I've got 2 stamps out of 1. I could have also chosen to do all the sides and had multiple stamps. This is Intaglio. What I did is I took a small object and pressed into it. Okay, everything that's low again will be raised, and here it's just a line. So we're going to see that line will pop out. And I'm going to show you this on the opposite side here. I'm going to press into that one. Okay. And then I'm going to press on the opposite one with the line. Okay, so you can see the difference there. One has just like a solid circle core. The other has a very specific line area. So, and these can be used. Multiple times. You can create patterns. You can kind of see how you can get like really nice details on maybe handles or around rims. You can do that too. Okay, so now this has not been fired. It still worked. Okay, but remember, longevity, you do want to get around to firing it. I did this last night, and right now, pretty firm. I can still smooth it a tiny bit with my finger if I need to. I've got one a little more rectangle side, and I've got one a little rounder. Now, you can, if you want to do a complex design that has an orientation, what you can do with a number or with a letter, you can simply draw it out how you like it. Okay. And then what you would do, make sure you can see through it, and then you would transfer it in the opposite direction on the paper. So I'm going to do, let's see, since I'm Jane, I will do a J. I'm going to press down, have my J just the way I like it. Now that might be a little too big, so a smart thing to think about is to trace around the shape that you're going to put it into before you do it. It's not perfect there. And make it a little bit smaller. You don't want it going to the edges because the edge will probably get in the way and you might lose part of that shape. So I'm going to take that J, I'm just going to rip it out, okay, and I can see it on the other side. Now you can use transfer paper or tracing paper, but tracing paper isn't always like super cheap. So I'm going to bear down just a little bit more so I can see it well. I'm going to put it on there backwards. So I can hold it up to the light. Make sure that I can see that. Then I'm going to take a needle tool. This is called a needle tool. Or I could take an X-Acto if I wanted. Whatever you have at home should be absolutely fine. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and I'm going to put little tiny dots. And those dots will transfer into my clay. And I'm just double checking to make sure. You want to hold it. Notice I'm holding it kind of down with my one hand here. Okay. And then what I'm going to have, you can kind of see, is I have a little pattern of dots. Now, if you're doing bigger stamps, there are sets of little carving tools that you can use, but something this small really doesn't require that. What I would do is go back and I would just kind of lightly connect those dots. The clay, in order to really carve well, needs to be a really firm leather hard. Right now it's a little bit on the soft side. And I'm noticing, yeah. So I'm going to push down into here. I'm going to come up and move just a little bit. I want to make sure I don't go all the way to the end. So I'm going to let this set up a little bit more. And on the other end I can transfer. Remember, you always want to do letters and numbers backwards. Now, I could decide to do a design here. Maybe I want some type of vine pattern. Okay. Or I want a cherry blossom. Or maybe I want a mountain range. Okay. I can kind of start what I'm thinking of doing and then maybe go back later and carve it out with a little more detail. Now, once again, you got to remember, okay, whatever is carved in the deepest will stick out the most. So if you want to work with a little perspective, probably would carve more detail, a little bit deeper into the ones in the front, a little bit less in the back to give it that kind of nice sense of perspective. Now, I would let this dry up a little more, and I would just put it under a piece of plastic. This will dry, even under plastic, a little bit, but I want it to dry slowly, less chance of crackage, and that's how you make an intaglio stamp. You can press things into it, you can transfer or carve designs, so try your hand at it. Any kind of clay will do. I wouldn't use like a plastic base, like a clay. I would use just a regular earthenware, any kind of regular clay that you have at home. Take care.